How to become more likable. In 2009, Stephanie Hawke was a PhD student at the Australian National University, where she conducted a study on whether the young teenagers of Canberra preferred to be popular or to be well-liked. Almost unanimously, the respondents of the study said they preferred being well-liked. One would assume that popularity would be a preference of the youngsters, as the popular are portrayed to have more friends, higher self-esteem, and a better chance of getting into a romantic relationship. However, these adolescents inform that those who are popular are not necessarily well-liked, and if they had to choose between the two, they would prefer the latter. This brings us to our topic of the day. For a human being to grow and to enjoy what would be considered a good life, they need to feel as if they belong in the society they live in. One blatant expression of whether you are in or you are out is a measure of how much your peers, or even your family and friends, like you. If they don't like you, you're unlikely to feel as if you belong. For the longest time, Judith had been okay with not being liked by her colleagues, and essentially all of her peers. She believed that the main reason for this is because of how easily she spoke her mind. Truth comes easy to her, and she has no qualms about educating those around her of what she perceives to be right. Her colleagues and acquaintances don't like directness and honesty much, and therefore started to avoid interactions with her unless it was necessary. One day, she walked into the office kitchen to get tea, and there she found her colleagues seated, discussing some football game. Empty cups in front of them. She politely said hi and headed to the counter to fill her cup. She had watched the game in question, and she thought that the final touchdown was so good it was religious. And so, she excitedly shared this while stirring her cup, ready to enjoy a break filled with football conversation, around a table with her work colleagues. Instead, each of the three persons who sat at that table murmured and shook their heads in agreement, then walked out and went back to their workstations. Sitting alone in the break room, her football opinions boiling at her throat, Judith felt lonely. Not being liked had never really been a problem for her, but it was now affecting the quality of her life. And so, she went on a quest to find out how to be better liked. It started with a lesson on the importance of listening to the people around you and hearing what they're saying to you. As she was browsing articles on the internet, she ran into one that was talking about being a good listener. Till then, Judith had always assumed that since she hears what the other person is saying and then gives her opinion based on what has been said, she must be a good listener. However, one question the author posed stuck in her mind. He had asked, "Are you hearing what the other person is saying, or are you simply waiting for your turn to speak?" When you're waiting for your turn to speak, what the other person says flies over your head, so you don't follow what they're saying. When people perceive that you're the kind of person who does this, whether unconsciously without their knowing it, or worse still consciously, they will like you less. To show someone you're listening, begin a small summary of what they said. This serves to assure the other person that you are following what they said, and also informs on what you're going to say next. When your peers know that you're a good listener, they will always find their way to you just to voice their thoughts. Asking questions during interactions is also another way to become more likable. But this is only if the person who you are speaking to enjoys giving you an answer. If you ask a question that offends your date the first time you meet, you'll probably not get a second chance. This also goes to questions that seem patronizing, or ones that are asked only simply to make small talk, rather than to converse. Asking your date to go into detail about something they enjoy doing makes them like you more because they feel good during such interactions. They then associate you with that good feeling, which makes them seek you. Compliments rarely go wrong, especially if you know where to target them. When you say something nice about someone, they feel good. Judith, for instance, has this birthmark on her chin that everyone she meets finds adorable, and when they acknowledge this, her moods are lifted. Recently, she spied this wine bottle a friend of hers had taken months to decorate, using random things she found on her way. This was the most expensive bottle of wine her friend had ever bought herself thus far, and it's been for a big life accomplishment. She wanted it as a permanent fixture in her home and had succeeded in doing this. Judith said she thought the bottle was cool, and she could see one of them on her chimney. On hearing this, her friend went crazy happy, almost like she couldn't wait for that compliment to come her way. A question on her decoration journey got the girl on a rant, which ended with downing a couple beers. When you compliment people on things they've worked so hard to achieve, they feel even better than things naturally endowed to them. For example, the birthmark. And this makes them like you more, enough to get beers with you. Showing your weaknesses also has a way of getting people to be comfortable and to develop a sort of camaraderie with you. Imperfection makes you relatable, as long as you aren't too enthusiastic about sharing all your problems. For instance, an unguarded moment had Judith opening up to her little sister about her struggle with being liked, and the attempt to change that. Her sister was very sympathetic, and she shared some advice on how to get it done, which the older girl found useful. Judith would argue that her sister liked her a little more because she saw her vulnerability. Too much information, however, makes you look like a victim, and unless someone has an unhealthy savior syndrome, they will not like you more for this. In your next interaction, find the right moment and talk about a weakness you have and see how your audience reacts. Being honest, even when it's not in your favor, gets you a few more likes as well. You'll seem less manipulative when the truth is more important to you than being liked, even if the other person doesn't want to hear it. Your words get more weight this way, as people believe the truth of what you're saying. Truth should, however, be filtered, depending on the environment. Reading the room tells you what truths would be liked and which would not. For instance, telling someone how their day-old divorce is the best thing that could ever happen in their life might be the truth eventually, if looked at objectively. At the moment, though, the other person is probably in pain, since their life was reset, and telling them how that is amazing for them will not earn you any favor. If you want to deliver a critique, start with a joke. At other times, it's necessary to tell a room or a person a truth they don't want to hear, but you still want to be liked at the end of it. When you start with a joke and make people laugh, they automatically like you, and so harsh facts they hear afterwards get a soft landing. When you go with the flow and be flexible in your interactions, you become more likable. Pushy people make their friends or a group they're hanging out with feel like they need to accommodate them, which fosters resentment. An ability to adjust to any situation means you're not demand-specific, and whatever the majority will prefer will go with you. Finally, a no-brainer way to get liked is to simply hang out around those you want to like you. If people are asked who they like better between a face they see every day and someone they've never encountered, they will choose the familiar one. Familiar faces propagate a sense of security. As Judith came to find, taking beverages or lunch around her colleagues got her included in their conversations and their weekend plans. I hope this video helps you to become more likable. That's all from us today. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.